A few years ago, my wife Emma and I decided to rent a rustic cottage for our anniversary. We wanted a peaceful getaway, so we chose a charming old house listed on Airbnb. It was a beautiful Victorian-era home filled with antique furniture and rich in history. The host, a man named Richard, had excellent reviews and seemed very welcoming. He greeted us warmly when we arrived, showed us around, and then handed us the keys before leaving us to enjoy our stay. The first night was uneventful. We spent our time exploring the house, reading in the cozy living room, and enjoying the tranquility. But on the second day, things started to get strange. While looking for a book to read, I stumbled upon a hidden latch behind a bookshelf. Curiosity got the better of me, and I pulled it, revealing a narrow passageway. The passage was filled with old, dusty furniture and strange symbols etched into the walls. The air was thick with a musty smell, and the whole place had an eerie vibe. That night, as we lay in bed, we heard a faint noise coming from the passage. At first, we dismissed it as the sounds of an old house settling. But then we heard it again, soft, deliberate footsteps. Nervously, we tried to ignore it, but the sounds continued, growing louder and more distinct. It was clear that someone, or something, was moving around in the hidden passage. Unable to sleep, we decided to confront Richard the next morning. When we explained what we had found and the noises we had heard, Richard's expression darkened. He reluctantly revealed that the passage had once been used by a cult for secret rituals. The symbols on the walls were remnants of their dark practices. Hearing this, Emma and I felt a wave of fear and unease. We knew we couldn't stay another night in the cottage. We cut our trip short and left immediately, not looking back. To this day, I can't forget the eerie experience. The memory of that hidden passage and the unsettling noises haunt me, serving as a chilling reminder that some secrets are best left undiscovered. Sarah and I decided to rent a beach house for a romantic weekend getaway. We found a beautiful place on Airbnb, right by the ocean, perfect for some relaxation and quality time together. When we arrived, the host, a man named Greg, greeted us. At first, he seemed overly friendly, but we didn't think much of it. He showed us around the house, pointed out all the amenities, and then left us to enjoy our stay. The first day was perfect. We spent time on the beach, enjoyed a nice dinner, and relaxed in the cozy living room. But things started to feel off pretty quickly. Greg would show up at the house unannounced, claiming he was just checking to make sure everything was okay. He dropped by multiple times a day, making small talk and lingering longer than necessary. It felt intrusive, but we tried to brush it off. One evening, after a long day of enjoying the sun and surf, Sarah and I were relaxing in the living room. I had just poured us some wine when Sarah suddenly froze, her eyes wide with fear. She pointed to the window, and I turned to see Greg standing outside, staring at us through the glass. My heart pounded in my chest as I quickly closed the curtains. We confronted Greg the next time he showed up, demanding to know why he was watching us. His demeanor changed instantly from friendly to aggressive. He insisted he had every right to check on his property and that we were overreacting. Later that night, when we were trying to sleep, both of us stayed awake on edge. Around midnight, we heard a noise coming from the kitchen. It sounded like someone was moving around downstairs. I got out of bed quietly and grabbed the closest thing I could find for protection, a heavy lamp. I slowly made my way downstairs, my heart racing with every step. When I reached the kitchen, I saw Greg standing there, rummaging through our food. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. Greg looked up, startled, but quickly tried to play it off. "I was just checking if you had everything you needed," he said, but his eyes had a wild, almost unhinged look. "Get out," I demanded, stepping closer with the lamp raised. "Now." Greg muttered something under his breath, but finally left. Sarah and I locked all the doors and windows, but we knew we couldn't stay there another night. Feeling threatened, we packed our bags and left immediately, cutting our weekend short. We reported Greg to Airbnb, detailing his creepy behavior and how he watched us through the windows. A few weeks later, we received an email from Airbnb. Greg had been arrested for stalking and harassment. Apparently, we weren't his only victims. Other guests had reported similar experiences, and our report was the final piece of evidence the authorities needed to take action. The whole experience was terrifying, and it left us both shaken. What was supposed to be a romantic weekend turned into a nightmare, all because of a creepy host who couldn't respect our privacy. Even now, whenever we book a place to stay, we make sure to read the reviews carefully and choose hosts with a solid track record. It's a chilling reminder that not everyone you meet has good intentions, and sometimes, the scariest part of a trip can be the people you encounter along the way. A few years ago, my wife Samantha and I decided to rent an apartment in an old Victorian house for a weekend getaway. We found it on Airbnb, and the pictures made it look like a charming, quaint place with lots of character. It was just what we needed to escape the hustle and bustle of our everyday lives. When we arrived, the host, a man named Arthur, greeted us warmly. He gave us a quick tour of the apartment, pointing out the antique furniture and the beautiful vintage details. Everything seemed perfect, but there was one thing that caught our attention: a locked door at the end of the hallway. Arthur quickly brushed off our curiosity about the door, saying it was just a storage room and that it was off limits. We didn't think much of it at first and settled in, excited to enjoy our weekend. That evening, after dinner, Samantha and I couldn't help but wonder what was behind the locked door. We joked about it being a secret treasure room or some hidden library. Our curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to take a closer look. I bent down to peek through the keyhole, expecting to see a cluttered storage space. Instead, I saw a dark figure standing motionless in the middle of the room. I quickly pulled back, my heart racing. "Samantha, you have to see this," I whispered. She took her turn at the keyhole and saw the same thing, a dark, shadowy figure that didn't move. The next morning, we asked Arthur about the room again, describing what we had seen. His reaction was strange. He became nervous and avoided our questions, insisting that it was just an old storage room and there was nothing to worry about. His behavior only heightened our unease. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, we heard scratching noises coming from behind the locked door. At first, we thought it might be mice or some other animal, but the sound was too deliberate, too human. We lay in bed, listening to the scratching, feeling a growing sense of dread. Samantha clung to me, and we both knew we couldn't stay there any longer. The noises continued, growing louder and more frantic. First thing in the morning, we packed our bags and left the apartment. We didn't bother saying goodbye to Arthur. We just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. A few weeks later, out of curiosity, I did some research on the house. I discovered that the previous owner had died in that very room under mysterious circumstances. The official cause of death was never determined, and there were rumors that his spirit still lingered in the house. The whole experience left us shaken. What was supposed to be a relaxing weekend turned into a terrifying ordeal. Even now, the memory of that dark figure and the scratching noises haunt us. Whenever we rent a place now, we make sure to ask plenty of questions and read all the reviews carefully. It's a chilling reminder that sometimes, the most beautiful places can hide the darkest secrets.